you get that extra bump, and that's really well done. Now, here's one of the things So
Millie Haffety will get us started. The junior from England represents Miami.
So that's a pretty solid way to start out. I will say there's a quick idea of that. So she's got a little trouble in her hurdle here. So you're going to see a lot of the girls do this hurdle that's the approach and stuff on the front 1.5 full, where she drops her arms and kind of loses her balance. That affects the scores. Probably will bring them down a little bit. They end up in that 5.5 to 6 range in the kind of satisfactory level. So you're looking for more than that, and that was a little lower degree of difficulty start, but one that she was pretty comfortable with.
For North Carolina, here's Paige Burrell, the junior from Lansdale, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, her first dive is a 403B inward 1.5 somersault spike. So it was an okay dive. It has a little bit of problems with it. I think it's actually really high up over the diving board, but she goes a little bit past maybe a little extra nerves and a little extra emotion that first dive there.
Speaking with North Carolina diving coach Yael Gamboa, said that North Carolina divers have been doing a remarkable job, including Burrell, last year a bronze medalist at the 1 meter here at the ACCs. Kelly Straub will be up next from Notre Dame.
So Kelly's next dive is the same one we just saw Paige do. So it's a inward 1.5 somersault spike, facing backwards, rotating forward towards the diving board. And so you're going to go in the pike position with straight legs. So that looked a little bit tight to the diving board. It'll be very interesting to see what the judges do with that.
What'd you think of the entry there, trying to get more vertical?
Well, like I said, I thought it was it was high, powerful, and trying to be aggressive. But you see the 1.4.5 in there. That person maybe thought that dive was a little too close to the diving board. And so distance really matters, and it's that fine line you walk in between.
Here's Camryn Hidalgo from Georgia Tech. In her 5th year, opts to come back to Tech.
It's a very pretty dive by Camryn. Now, it's got a lower degree of difficulty. It's a back 1.5 somersaults with a half twist. It's only 2.1 degree of difficulty. Love the tight line entry. It could be higher, but it's still going to score pretty well in the 7 range in that good category.
Terrific start here for Hidalgo. I have to love her story. She missed the ACCs her freshman year due to an injury in warm-ups. Since then has really surged. Bronze at the 3 meter at the NCAAs last year. Now for Emma Gulstrand.
Emma also choosing to start with a 403B and inward 1.5 somersault spike. It's a dive that's pretty easy. That's going to get very good to very good execution scores. Going to be in the 7.5 to 8.5 range, I think, which is going to turn into 50 plus, maybe 60 almost points. Love her pike position in that.
She'll like her scores, Jason. As you mentioned, the freshman from Sweden participated in the Tokyo Olympics with Sweden in the 3 meter. And the gold medalist last year, Mia Volley.
Also choosing that inward 1.5 somersault pike at 2.4 to start with. Again, I really like that. I love that she's very powerful and going up strong and high. Nice dike pike, a little bit over on the entry, so maybe 7.5. Again, 55 or so points that would work.
2 podium trips at the ACCs last year. What do you think separates Valet from some of the other divers around this conference?
You know, I think for her it's the degree of difficulty, especially on the 1 meter event where she's got 2 dives over 3.0 degree of difficulty.
There's Margo O'Mara from Duke.
Again, choosing that same 1.5 somersault pike at 2.4 degree of difficulty, done very, very well. I really like that. That was beautifully done. Nice toe point going into the water in that entry. Again, 8s or better. That's huge.
Number 2 in the prelims, 2 points behind Vasquez. And here's Aranza Vasquez from North Carolina.
So interesting that she's choosing to start with a little higher degree of difficulty, the front 2.5 somersaults pike. Yep. So that front 2.5 pike is super high. You see this really powerful front approach that she does, but she lands just slightly back on the end of the diving board there. Again, but it's a really nice, big, powerful jump. So it's just a small deduction.
That completes round 1. Aranza Vasquez off to a great start. The second round from Atlanta coming up on the other side.
So this is Millie's back 1.5 somersault pike to start round 2. It's going backward, rotating backward, nice and vertical. I love the tight feet and entry going into the water. That should score about 7s or better.
She competed at the British Diving Championship. She bronzed Jason in the 1 meter and 3 meter back in those championships overseas, and has been a healthy addition to this Miami team. Now a junior there at Miami.
Yeah, Great Britain's got a great program. They've done really well about developing their junior program and that, so it's no surprise to coming over here and doing a good job.
Back to Paige Burrell. Just joining us last year, bronze on the 1 meter at the ACC's, 15th at the NCAA zones, the regionals as a freshman.
So this is her forward 2.5 pike at that 2.6 degree difficulty, so a little higher. So again, love that she's jumping and powerful. You see a lot of the women doing this hop of hurdle where they're getting 2 feet to 1 foot and then their hurdle. But she's got to get to the end of the diving board. She's just slightly back, but does a great job with the dive, but that is a small deduction that those judges are looking for.
And where are they looking to land towards that black marking towards the end of the board?
So you really want to be with your toes as close to the black line as possible, but not over it and not behind it. So it's trying to get that real in-between spot.
There's Notre Dame's Kelly Straub for her second dive.
So again, pretty similar. You see her jump pretty well. She just moves back a little bit on the diving board, and then as she goes in the water, she just lets it roll past vertical. And you know, one of the things that the judges are not scoring, but it does affect the entry into the water, is that save that they do. So when you're rotating forward, you want to do a pike save and pull your legs back to your chest and try to make it look as vertical as possible and also take as much water down as possible.
It's Camryn Hidalgo with a 2.4 degree of difficulty on this second dive.
So super vertical, which is awesome. I love that that start goes up and over, but I love that it's really vertical. It's just not as big on the jump maybe as some of those other ladies, but we've doing, you know, she's choosing to do that dive second where it's not necessarily being a direct comparison with her competitors.
John Ames, the head diving coach at Georgia Tech, has been really impressed with what Hidalgo has brought, especially from a leadership standpoint. Back to Miami, who has 3 divers in the 1 meter finals on the women's side, and Gulstrand for her second attempt.
So choosing this one from the back category, it's a back 1.5 somersaults pike, so she's going to start back facing backward and rotate backward. So that is an awesome job of showing control. You watch her get in, move quickly, be powerful, and she comes out and stops that on a dime right there with what we would call a kick, look, reach, and then the knee save under the water to give it that really strong entry. I would agree with Judge 6 there at the 8.5. That was very good.
Strong start for Gulstrand, the freshman from Sweden. Ken was in the Olympics with Sweden, back to volley.
So this is a big dive for her. It's a 405C. It's an inward 2.5 somersaults tuck, so an extra rotation in the tuck position. And what you'll see is that's a 3.1 degree of difficulty. So if you execute well and it's that higher degree of difficulty, you get that extra bump, and that's really well done. Now, here's one of the things I can say about that. She's a little bit too split in her tuck for me, which is why those scores are in that 6.5 range. But that is a dive that many of the men, it's a staple for them. You can see it just starting to develop and be more and more in the women's contest too.
Here's O'Mara's second dive.
So this is Margo O'Meara's back 1.5 somersault pike. Again, 2.3 degree of difficulty. If you're going to do that dive, you got to do it really, really well, and she did. She puts it straight up and down with a really nice clean entry. I can probably argue that her feet flex just a tiny bit and maybe separate going in the water, but that was beautiful. Love it. 58 points on a back 1.5 pike is awesome.
And to wrap up round 2, Aranza Vasquez for her second dive.
So look at the height she gets in comparison, if we can try and think about that. Because what I see on that is how powerful she is. She is so strong and goes up so high and then stops it in control. You got to have both.
She has to love those scores, Jason. Her coach, Yidel Gamboa, has to love the surge by Vasquez. 2 rounds in the books. The third round on the 1 meter coming up after the break. Here are the scores through 2 rounds of this 1 meter finals on the women's side, and Aranza Vasquez spearheads. But how about Margo O'Meara, what she's providing along with Emma Gulstrand here at the top?
Well, yeah, and you look at their first 2 dive choices at 2.4, 2.3, lower degree of difficulty, but the execution has been fantastic.
It's Haffety's third dive of this final.
So she's doing a reverse 1.5 somersault pike, so she's going to go forward but rotate back towards the diving board. So you look at her dive, her hurdle, she lands a little bit too close to the end. I'd say that right foot is maybe curled over the end on that black line just a little bit, and then you see it actually shoot forward too far, but still does a good job to fight for as many points as possible, but it's a little too far out, so it downs in that satisfactory category.
How much has that hurdle evolved over time in the diving sphere?
You know, it's one of those things, I can honestly say I think it started in around even in the late 90s, but it's become more accepted and actually done by a lot of individuals. At the world level, you probably see 100% of the women at the Olympics doing that kind of a hurdle.
It's Paige Burrell with her third dive.
So that back 1.5 was okay start, but she got to stop it and get it vertical, and then you see the difference between getting, stopping it on a dime going in vertical and a little bit over rotation. You go from 8s to 5.5s, and that makes a big difference in your overall total score.
2.3 degree of difficulty here for Notre Dame's Straub.
So Kelly's doing the exact same dive we just saw Paige do, so a back 1.5 somersault pike. And does a nice job to stop it. It's still moving a little bit fast, and it over-rotates just slightly. Again, but it's that hard because you got to be quick and get out. And just a little bit splashy on the entry. But again, right, you saw 5.5 a second ago, now you get 6.5 sevens. You saw 8.5s earlier, so those differences are really easy to see as a judge.
Look how powerful Hidalgo is at the start of this.
That's a great, powerful hurdle. And obviously diving in your home pool makes a difference. You see everything there. She just does a little bit over-rotated on the finish, maybe a little archy in her back, but gosh, I love that pike position.
You speak to this being Hidalgo's home pool. Coley Aquatic Center will also host women's and men's NCAAs, including the zones as well. So here's Emma Gulstrand.
So this is her reverse 1.5 somersaults pike. Again, 2.4 degree difficulty, but she's going to go forward and rotate backward. So what I like about that is that she is huge in her hurdle. So high and powerful here on that hop into the hurdle and jump. The problem where she has a little trouble is on that entry, but it's hard for the judges not to look at it and go, I have to reward that jump and takeoff, but there's a little miss, kind of not cleaned up on the entry. She cleans that up, it's 8.5s, 9s across the board, but where it is, it's still 7s. And again, Mia does a really good front 2.5 pike. You cannot see any space between her chest and her legs in the pike, that is how it's defined in the FINA rulebook as far as how the pike is supposed to be when you're judging it, and a good entry.
Strong start for the defending champ. Here's O'Mara. That was very vertical there from Margo O'Mara, the freshman.
And very vertical, and the last thing you hear is that rip sound with her hands making the entry into the water. It maybe washes just a little bit over, but because of that sound and how it looks and how powerful it is, I think it's still going to score probably in that 7, 7.5 range, but even those were higher than I would have given it.
And Aranza Vasquez, the last diver here for round 3.
Yep, and this is her lowest degree of difficulty, the 2.3 back 1.5 somersault pike. And you see, you've got to control power, speed, and then control to stop it so that it goes in very vertical. I love the big jump and the nice tight pike. Just a little bit over rotation because she's got to stop it, but she's got so much power. Still a very good miss.
3 rounds in the books. The ACC Female Diver of the Year, Aranza Vasquez, loves her start to this final. She's just behind O'Mara. We'll start the 4th round on the other side. Starting the 4th round of the women's 1 meter, and with 3 in the books, Margo O'Mara of Duke has the lead over Aranza Vasquez. How surprising is that to you through 3 so far?
It's not actually that surprising. She had a little bit of this lead going in there in the prelims too. There's some dives that'll come up here at the end, and we'll see how it all works itself out.
Back to Haffety to begin round 4. A lower degree of difficulty here, Jason.
Yeah, this one's 2.6, so this is a dive where she's actually doing twisting. So you're going to see one of the other categories. So she's going to go forward, rotate, and twist together. And then come out and go try to find vertical. It's a good dive. It's a little bit too far forward, and it's a little short of vertical at the end. But again, you got a lot of components going on. You got to stand up straight. You got to use the twist to be nice and tight in her position, which she is, and then dig just a little harder to get to vertical.
For those that are new to diving, 6 dives from 5 categories. They can be in any order the diver chooses. You take out the top 2 scores and the bottom 2. You take the rest and multiply that by the degree of difficulty to give the score. That's all added up over the 6 dives to give you our champion.
Right. So you got to be consistent, and you have to be able to do all the categories.
Here's Paige Burrell.
So that is a fantastic start and jump. If I had one small complaint, again, it's that control at the end. So you see her go so high, coming out at the 1.5 and just a little bit fast and throwing her hands back instead of leaving them down and looking back a little bit and getting that vertical entry. So the scores come down 5.5, 6 instead of up in that 7.5, 8, 8.5 range.
From North Bend High School in the suburban Philadelphia area, and back to Kelly Straub for her 4th dive.
So this is the reverse 1.5 pike we just saw. So again, you're going to get a direct comparison. So the reverse 1.5 is very nice. From here, you can see that that's actually moving just slightly to the side of the diving board. So she lands on the corner and she goes a little bit off to the side. Now, if the judges see that, that is also a deduction, anywhere from 1/2 to 2 points. So again, that's probably why that dive ends up in the 6 range, where it had the potential to be in the 7.5 or 8 range.
Back to Hidalgo, is also off to a strong start. Lower degree of difficulty at 2.3, though.
Yeah. But this is the same dive you're going to see from all of the ladies on the back 1.5. They're all doing 203B at back 1.5 pike at 2.3. It's a nice dive. Maybe not the power and amplitude in the beginning, but that lineup and vertical entry was awesome.
Tactically against one another, how do they know when to take risks with a higher degree of difficulty versus not?
I would say it's statistics and analytics, right? How many times out of 100 are you going to do it for this much points, right? If you get 6.5s on it 10 times out of 100, maybe that's not the dive to do. So here's a chance to take some risk for her. It's a reverse 2.5 tuck from reverse 2.5 somersaults tucked from Emma Gulstrand, 3.0 degree difficulty. And that is a much better effort than her preliminaries. What you see in her hurdle here just is a little bit of impatience, I would say, where she starts to drop her arms just a little bit. But man, look how high she is above the 3 meter, and then that kick out and lineup is fantastic.
What do the divers have to do with the tuck? You said you can't be too spread apart.
So when you're looking at your tuck, you got to have your feet inside, inside your shoulders.
Back to valet.
And she will be very happy with that. And Randy from Miami, also very happy with that. He had 2 good reverse 2.5 tucks in a row. That was, again, so big and high at 3.0. And she kicks and goes nice and vertical. But you'll see that split tuck we're talking about. If the judges can see it from the side, now it's a different angle from the front. It's a 1/2 to 2 point deduction. So all these little things that you're trying to look for.
Previously, Gulstrand had the high dive. Alomera.
And what I like about Margo's front 2.5 pike here is that it's high, it's powerful, but look at that entry, how she comes out, hands to the side, sees the water, reaches out and goes, line up, pike safe, and drills it.
Adjustment in the air there for O'Mara. Does well to score nicely, though, for Duke.
Yeah, over 60 points on that one, too. So, you know, even though she gave up a little degree of difficulty and a little bit more on those 3.0s, that was a good effort on the front 2.5 pike.
One of the most powerful divers in the country here in Aranza Vasquez for North Carolina.
So she does a great job with this 303B. So reverse 1.5 somersault pike. Watch when she lands in her hurdle on our replay. Look where her feet are relative to the end of the board. And the amount of control that takes. Her toes are over the end. She's so powerful that she's actually putting the diving board in the water, which changes the way that it goes and then how it goes up.
Terrific scores for Vasquez in the 8s. We are going to the 5th round for the Macaulay Aquatic Center after these messages. We're through 4 rounds of diving in the 1 meter finals. Valet has leapfrogged O'Mara, and the top 4 separated by just 8 points.
Yeah, it's a very close pace, about 10 points in between there, 9 points in between there. But again, everybody's dives are a little bit different. They can choose to do those higher degree of difficulty, lower degree of difficulty, so we still got some movement available in there.
So Haffety's towards the bottom in 7th, but what have you made of her start so far? We're through 4 dives.
You know, I think she was really consistent to get into the final to make the top 8. Once you're there, you know, it's a chip in a chair, right?
Better execution there.
You got a chance. That was a much better execution. Still a little rolling on the entry, but again, it's a solid front 2.5 pike. Probably going to be 6.5, 7. Could be a little closer to the diving board, but I actually like the dive, and that was good.
Some better scores there from Haffety. Has to be pleased with her 5th round performance. And over to Paige Burrell.
So this is a change for Paige, and I know that they made that, you know, from the prelim to the final. So she had initially did a front 1.5 with a full twisted degree difficulty of 2.2. You know, I'm in the final. We're upgrading to a forward 3.5 somersault tuck. So she's going to go forward, rotate 3.5 times in the tuck position, and then try to find vertical and do that. Again, these are dives that are a staple in the men's diving for 1 meter, but are starting to see more and more powerful athletes and women kind of catching up. But there's obviously risk reward.
Let's see her approach here on this important 5th dive.
Got a chance. I love the hurdle. She's set up in the right spot just a little bit early and lifts her chest coming out. Yeah, I really like this really powerful hurdle. She's in great spot. She's going up. She's got it, but a little anxious to come out and just leaves it short. But you got to go for it, right? You can't get below 8th, and you need the degree of difficulty, so go after it. I like that approach. Especially as this is a dress rehearsal for NCAA zones. Going to be in this pool in a few weeks. And NCAA championships again. You know, that's the dive you're going to want to have when you're trying to battle for the top 8 at the NCAAs.
So here's Straub right now. Is in 8th place right at this dive.
First of her 2 twisting dives. So she's going to do a backward 1.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists. And that's in the free position because half of the dive's done straight, and then she squares out and she pikes at the waist. So really good, big, powerful jump, nice, easy, smooth twist. You see her tee with her hands and put them out to the side, and then that lineup and entry.
We're seeing a lot more twisting dives too. How do they look more cleaner versus others? What sets them apart?
You know, if it is one of those things where it's easier to do some higher degree difficulties, you'll see her next twisting dive is actually the exact opposite of the one she's doing, where she's going forward but doing the same kind of dive.
That's pretty from Hidalgo.
That is pretty from Hidalgo. From Cammy, that was great. You know, she's moving in a good spot. Again, lower degree of difficulty for her overall list, but look how clean, extend, straight, line up, and knee save. I love it. So again, step down, she's right on the end. It's up in the right position. And boom, entry, instant knee save.
She'll love those scores. Terrific pike position there from Hidalgo during that dive. Out of Gulstrand.
Yeah, over 55 points is doing well. If you can get over 60, you're doing excellent. So this is Emma's front 2.5 somersaults pike. So everybody's done one in the contest. This is hers at 2.6. So if we can think back, and we saw her hurdle on the reverse 2.5, she drops her arms in her hurdle. On this one, she steps down and she holds them until she starts her swing and gets it to move up, and so she's in better position, and that's why it's an easier job to finish it. Now, that reverse jam tuck is hard. This is one pretty easy for her. She had a really good dive.
Mia Vele, who won the 1 meter last year at the ACCs, that rivalry with Aranza Vasquez. This is her 5th attempt in this 1 meter final. Look at her positioning towards the end of the board too.
Yeah, so going backwards, she's doing a back 1.5 somersault pike, only 2.3 degree difficulty here. So she's given up a little bit there, but she's had some big ones already. Wow, that's an amazing back 1.5 pike. Maybe a little flex feet, but probably going to go 8, 8.5, maybe even higher. Lovely position in the air. It extends, and you can see, if you watch her go through the water, you can see those knees slightly start to bend. Again, almost 60 points on a degree of difficulty at 2.3. That's fantastic.
That, Jason, creates some separation between she and Gulstrand and Hidalgo.
Well, she's going to need it based on her last round dive, but we'll talk about that.
So Mara from Duke.
So here's her first twisting dive. Again, back 1.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists. So again, I'm going to ask you to think about, can you see the last one we saw? We saw Kelly do one just 2 dives ago. But look, she's even more up and higher finishing, squares out, and got more drop into the finish. So it's going to score higher, and it's still vertical. So it's going to be 8, 8.5 maybe.
What did you think of the entry there?
I love the pike save. I thought she lost her feet just a tiny bit. But again, those are the minute details you're trying to tease out as you're sitting there as a judge and then immediately giving your score.
Yeah, still terrific scores there for O'Mara on her 5th dive. And here's Vasquez to cap round 5.
So you're going to see this big, powerful hurdle, right? When she lands, we're going to get our side view here. It's a good dive. It's the same dive as back 1.5, except for you're going forward and rotating backwards. There are 2 small flaws in there that I see. She's a little off to the side. She loses her feet a little bit in the middle of the twist, but still good dive.
Final round of this 1 meter women's final coming up next. Here's Miami's diving coach, Randy Abelman. Has to be really pleased seeing 3 Miami female divers in it. Among them, Valet is at the top. Just 1 point separates she and O'Mara of Duke, but it doesn't get the feeling like it's 1 point with the degree of difficulty as we enter the 6th and final round of the final.
Yeah, right. We've got to do multiple dives in that way. We've got a spread of 2.2 degree difficulty to 3.0 degree difficulty between the competitors, so it'll be very interesting.
Here's Millie Haffety's final attempt here in the 1 meter final.
She's got an inward 1.5 somersault pike, one of the dives that many of the ladies just chose to start with. And a lot of times you end with a dive that you really like, that's consistent for you, that you can do well. This makes sense to me for her. It was a nice, straight, vertical entry. Love her pike save. And the last thing you see are that clean entry and beautiful feet. Easy to get behind why that's a good dive.
Has to admire those scores to cap off this 1 meter final. Now we segue back to Paige Burrell, who changed her dive on the 5th attempt, as you stated.
Yeah, like I said, I think she was going for it. You know, here we go. We got a back 1.5 as her last dive at 2.5. We've seen these before. We'll see what she does here. Again, it's straight up and down and vertical, but you know, here's what the judge's job is to tease out how was that in comparison to the other ones. What am I looking at? I thought it was good. I will say, to me, that twist is a little bit clunky because it kind of does 3 kind of half twists instead of all 1.5 twisted together. But again, still a good dive, and it scores in that 7.5 range.
Well done through 6 dives for Paige Burrell for North Carolina, and here's Kelly Straub. 2.6 degree of difficulty in her final attempt.
Yeah, so we saw Kelly do a back 1.5 before. This is the reverse 1.5 going forward, but then basically doing the same dive, rotating backwards 1.5 times with 1.5 twists. And she's going to be happy with that effort. That was really good on the end of the diving board, high, powerful, and best part about Kelly's diving, in my opinion, is her lines. She is long and straight and very pretty going in, and it makes it look effortless.
She's a hard worker compared to Finland's Joona Papaka, according to their diving coach, Mark Bradshaw of Notre Dame. All right, here we go to Camryn Hidalgo, who's really looked strong throughout her first 5 dives.
Yeah, her final dive is a back 1.5. Her execution has been great all the way along. She hasn't really missed too much, been right where she needs to be. For whatever reason, we seem to have a little bit of a hold up here, but the last dive is back 1.5. We see that it's 2.5 degree of difficulty. It's a very good dive. I like the start. I think the finish has got a little bit of arch in her back on her lineup as she goes in the water, and that might be a slight deduction. Just this little bit of movement right in her back where she goes in instead of kind of that flat, hollow position and pulling her legs back in. And maybe not quite as high as some of the other competitors, but still over 300 points for her total. That's fantastic.
Here's the Swedish Olympian in Emma Gulstrand from Miami. Just a freshman. She's going to have a decorated career, no question, at Miami under Randy Abelman and his staff.
So this is a forward 1.5 somersaults with 2 twists, 2.6, same as the reverse 1.5. So I think we can watch that. We can talk about, you know, that you are not always going to get the perfect takeoff. So you see her hurdle kind of on the end and go backwards a little bit, but then still stay with it and do a good dive and get those high scores. Little deduction for the hurdle and kind of being on the end and then not quite on the end on her actual takeoff, and actually quite get her hands all the way together and get that entry. But again, 60 points, that'll work.
Yeah, A strong performance there from Gulstrand. Now over to last year's champion. See how she mounts the pressure here. Valet with a 2.2 degree of difficulty. This is where you said those adjustments.
Yeah, well, I'm reading her lips here. She's asking the referee to change her last dive because it's going to go from 51.32 to 51.34. I'm pretty sure she's going to do front 1.5 with 2 twists. So the same degree of difficulty as Emma just did of 2.6.
And with O'Mara and Vasquez right behind her, it's an interesting tactics here, trying to increase the dive here on the degree of difficulty.
Well, it's one of those things, right? If you're in contention, right? You got a chance. And, you know, I think she probably came to the same conclusion I did, you know, a few minutes ago of, yeah, you got a 2.1 left. You needed to have a big lead to get there, and you only got 1 point lead over Margo, and a few points in between those, you know, second and third and fourth places. So you got to go for it.
So what goes through the mind of a diver here when you're adjusting on the fly for your final attempt here for the championship on the line?
I mean, everybody is different, but what I would say is that if you're making that change, you feel good about it. I know Randy, and they wouldn't make that change without knowing that we're capable of that. And again, it's solid. It's a little off axis, which is maybe why she didn't do it before, but it's probably still going to go in the 7 range. I think Emma's maybe a little bit better, but we'll see. And Randy's going to be happy with that. You know, it's 55 points there.
Down to the final 2 competitors. Can they dethrone the powerful Valet?
My favorite is this is a very small family, and we support our athletes.
Here's O'Mara for Duke.
And that was a much better effort than her preliminary one. Her preliminary one, she was a little forward. She did a great job of letting that go up, but she is a talented athlete all the way around. And straight up and down and vertical, and that was nice. Just a little bit of movement, but that big, strong jump.
She's taken the lead by 1 point, the freshman O'Mara over Valet. Now can Aranza Vasquez of North Carolina, she knows the moment. Can she deliver for gold?
If she does what she did in the preliminary, yes, without a doubt. But it's not the preliminary, it's the final, so we'll see. I think that she's going to come up a little bit short, just like she did on that dive. She was really powerful, trying not to let it go over, and she just came out a little early and left it short, so it's going to be very, very close.
And Margo O'Mara is going to hang on and win gold in the women's 1 meter final here at the ACCs.
Yeah, I mean, you put pressure on. Sometimes that's why it's the difficulty of being the last to go, is you know what you have to do. And the disappointment is obvious for Aranza, but she'll be back. She'll get another chance at the NCAA zones and the NCAAs.
Here's her reaction when she saw the score, Jason, for the Olympian.
Well, she's competitive, right? She wanted to win. But it's a learning experience, you know, and that's the hard part about our sport.
Congratulations again.